I wake up this morning and I'm immediately aggravated. Typically, when I'm on my way to work, let's say if I'm on the subway or if I'm on the metro, or if I am here scrolling through my Twitter feed, I use that as a way of kind of looking at the world and figuring out what I want to talk about. I'm following pretty much everybody, so the news kind of flows in. And I'm immediately aggravated by both sides of the political spectrum, which in my head are basically the same side because they're just a gradient of one another. And of course, I'm talking about the two political parties. Right now, Shane gave you a rundown in regards to the number of people who've been dying from COVID-19. Fact of the matter is the deaths are accelerating. You had a period where it took 14 days to hit a million, then it was 10 days to hit a million, then it was a week. They are talking about 2,000 deaths a day because of the number of rates in which the disease is accelerating. And by the way, the ICUs that are overflooded, the ERs that are overflooded, you realize that there are other secondary consequences to this. If the ERs and ICUs are overflooded, how do you get to people with cancer? How do you get to people with diseases that you need to diagnose and that you need to actually take time to be able to do that diagnosis? How do you do that when your beds and your ICUs and your hospitals are overflooded with COVID-19? Even if it's not every hospital, it doesn't necessarily matter if it's every hospital. If it hits in major areas, you are going to have people dying. And what you're seeing is an acceleration of the disease. Initially, Donald Trump, when he was giving those rosy pronouncements, was using Dr. Birx to give those pronouncements. You used to see Fauci out and about all the time. Birx, secret weapon. Until Birx realized her pronouncements were nonsense. They were fanciful. They were basically rosy pronouncements that had nothing to do at all with reality. Donald Trump knew all the way back in February. We have evidence, we have proof, flat fact. In February, how bad this was, how infectious this was. He lied the entire time, downplaying this particular virus going into the presidency. Birx was one of those people giving him that rosy pronouncement of what he wants to hear. Birx got her head straight, started giving a pronouncement like Fauci, and Donald Trump got a roving eye looking for somebody else to give him those rosy pronouncements. He found it, and not a disease expert or even an epidemiologist. He found it in Scott Atlas, a neuroradiologist. Yes, that has nothing to do with disease and pandemics. He was a yes man. He gave Trump what he wanted. It was almost as if it was kind of like the climate change argument, where Donald Trump was like, it's not real. But if you look at what the scientists were saying in some of Donald Trump's documents, they projected the heat going up 9 degrees by 2100. The argument and excuse was basically, we can't do anything about it anyway, so what's the point? Well, it's kind of the same argument. Oh, we don't want to lock down, we don't want to have these shutdowns. And Atlas is the guy that is basically belittling and downplaying the measures that states are taking in order to try to deal with this particular issue. While that is taking place, you have some other people who are getting entrepreneurial activities. For example, the inmates in El Paso who are paid $2 an hour to move dead bodies to the morgue. They are doing gangbusters. So I suppose that there are some positive attributes in this. The morgues are doing extraordinarily well. The inmates apparently are making extra money. But yeah, the rest of the population is dropping like flies. And while the population drops like flies, Trump's crazy uncle, Rudy Giuliani, is going out spreading a remarkable conspiracy theory, radically ridiculous on its face, that includes Soros, Biden, and Hugo Chavez's ghosts. Let's play the clip.
Well, first of all, the machines can be hacked. There's no question about that. Their machines can be hacked. But it's far worse than that, Lou. Dominion is a company that's owned by another company called Smartmatic through an intermediary company named Indra. Smartmatic is a company that was formed way back in about 2004, 2003, 2004. You're going to be astonished when I tell you how it was formed. It was formed really by 3 Venezuelans who were very close to the dictator Chavez of Venezuela. And it was formed in order to fix elections. That's the company that owns Dominion. Dominion is a Canadian company, but all of its software is Smartmatic software. So the votes actually go to Barcelona, Spain. So we're using a foreign company that is owned by Venezuelans who are close to Chavez, are now close to Maduro, have a history. They were founded as a company to fix elections. They have a terrible record, and they are extremely hackable. So, Texas made the right decision. What the heck was Georgia doing hiring this company? I'll tell you what they were doing. The lobbyist for Dominion was the former chief of staff for the governor. Why are we using a foreign company with connections to Venezuela?
We can stop here for the moment.
I'll give you another connection.
Yeah, let's stop here for the moment.
Smartmatic.
This is basically Russiagate 2.0. This is a ludicrous theory on its face. And look, a modest fact check shows it to be ridiculous. But that's kind of besides the point to me right now. I'm trying to point out that the President of the United States is basically trying to tweet his way to a coup to stay in office, despite the fact that the responsibilities that are supposed to be ingrained in that president, like not having people drop like flies to the tune of hundreds of thousands. That's his job. And instead of doing his job, even within the course of those next few months that are left, even as a lame duck, it's your job. You've decided to basically let people die. You don't deserve it. And it's not that Joe Biden deserves it. You certainly don't deserve it. It's not an either or. This is a situation of both. On the other side of the political spectrum, you have Schumer, who came out the other day, I think November 3rd, and made the point that Joe Biden by himself could sign an executive order to eliminate like $50,000 of student debt. Now, this should be a no-brainer. Do you realize that part of the reason that it is believed that Donald Trump overperformed was because Donald Trump was bragging about passing $1,200 stimulus, which the Democrats weren't on board for originally, which he was passed the PPP, basically keeping the businesses afloat and keeping people afloat, and the student loan deferment and the rent deferment. They campaigned on that. Why? Because everybody in their right mind, what weirdo doesn't believe that in the middle of a pandemic where people are in desperate straits, that the things that the government does to benefit those people, to help those people, to keep those people afloat, wouldn't be appreciated? What weirdo believes that? Oh, right, the Democratic Party. So when these guys are complaining, oh, progressives hurt us down ballot, you hurt yourselves down ballot. You're the ones who made the choice not to push for progressive policy. You chose not to push for Medicare for all in the middle of a pandemic. You chose not to get rid of student debt. You chose to run an inert, lackluster, just boring campaign against one of the most beatable candidates ever. And Donald Trump expanded in his numbers among Hispanics, among blacks, and among even Republicans. If this was a normal election season, where the mail-in ballots were what they typically were, Biden would have lost. That's the reality of this. And look, it's not that I think the mail-in ballots were cheating. I'm just kind of making the point that your campaign lacked so little energy, or had so little energy, that you could not galvanize the public in a way that made people energetic and enthralled to vote for you and put you in that office ecstatic, because your donors and the people who are putting money in your pocket don't want you to do it. So the moment that the question comes up about eliminating $50,000 student debt, again, Donald Trump bragged on this stuff. The progressives who were pushing Medicare for all won their seats. The marijuana legislation won, meaning the lefty policies that were being put either on ballot amendments or by candidates won. Your dinosaurs failed and lost. So we're having this now conversation about college debt, and Democrats, predictably, are arguing with themselves, probably put out best, especially by their donors. Both of these parties are lame on so many levels, and neither of these parties, honestly, deserves your support. And it's just, we're stuck in this weird political system where people feel like they need to dedicate their energies to one or another, missing the point that both are utterly ridiculous. and fail at any level of a real task. Do you realize that the American public was appreciative that Donald Trump gave $1,200? That's his job as president of the United States to do that. The social safety net and those people who put their tax money in, put their energies in, and making this country what this country is. And the moment that it hits the skids, the government can't be bothered. Yeah, that's a profound letdown on both sides, because I fully believe that the Democrats were playing politics when those stimulus bill could have came out. And yeah, you were hurt for it. Shane, I am aggravated with both. It is a no-brainer to get rid of student debt if you are supposedly working in the best interest of the public. It is a no-brainer to say we're going to deal with Medicare for all or some kind of health thing in the midst of a pandemic. And instead, both parties realizing one case letting people die while getting fanciful information, and the other one having an argument about itself on whether or not it should cover a portion of student loans. I am done with both. What do you think, Shane?
Where the heck do you go, though? What are you going to do if you? I mean, this is where you've been for a while, but I'm personally curious, Jamarl. You know, as much as you care to reveal, you say you're done with both. Where does that leave you politically? What's your choice there?
It leads me pushing for policy. That basically what I'm pushed for is I am for this. This has nothing to do with the parties. You get my vote or you get my support based on whether or not you back my interests. And by the way, if everybody did that, you would have a different political system overnight. Because my point is the energy that people put into the political system is basically the thing that feeds this nonsense. And one person says, okay, well, you get X number of votes for Trump and for Biden. And you ask these people, well, how many of you satisfied with either of these guys? And I would wager to you a large number of them would say, I am greatly unsatisfied with both. But none of those, or many people, don't have the thing to leave it because that's all they know. Not realizing that you have to pull your powers away from it. Democrats need to fundamentally lose and fail. And that first loss wasn't enough to give them this kind of come to Jesus moment. They need to fail until it does. That's where I'm at. I don't have a dog in this hunt anymore, at least not for the foreseeable future. So that's where I am. I think more people should pull themselves out of the political space and focus on policy. I think we'll be better off as a country. I think it's more of a movement in that case.
I hear you. I agree. Yeah, frankly, I agree. Both of the choices there are pretty bunk. I wouldn't, and in this election, I didn't vote for either the Democrats or the Republicans on the presidential level. And I mean, I'm not going to advocate people do anything. It's up to you what you do. But broadly, pushing for policies seems a really important thing there. Basing your politics on your policies and only voting for the parties when they fit those, that's in some sense the native role of democracy, of how you're supposed to fit yourself into the democracy. So I completely agree with that. And secondarily, and this is just me coming in here, doing whatever you can to build up your local communities, pitching in, helping people out, helping out the people that helping out people in your local communities who need the support, maybe building an organization that can regularly provide them exactly what they need. If you do those things, then you're fixing politics on a national level, then you're helping to sort of reorient the national political system. And that I think is the way in which you should participate on the national system. And then you're also building up this sort of like vital substrate of democracy on the groundwork. So yeah, we agree on that definitely. In any event, we need to go into a break. You're on fire this morning, Jamarl. We'll be back in just a minute on the other side of this break. You're listening to Fault Lines with Jamarl Thomas and Shane Stranahan.